I don't recall when I first discovered a Rubik's Cube, but I do know I never figured out how to solve one. The best I could ever do was to get one face all lined up, and then after that. So the idea that there are people out there who can solve this thing to perfection is still kind of mind-boggling to me. And then to think there are people who can solve it in seconds flat. And then to discover that one such person lives right here in my community. Well, naturally, I wanted to meet and talk to this guy. I'm Brian Johnson, and this is Nobody You Know. I'm here with Jameson O'Connor. He is a competitive speed cuber in Bend, Oregon, and I came across him one day because actually he was in a play, so he wants to be an actor as well. If I wrote a play about a guy who was a competitive speed cuber, would you be in it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Sure. I'm 30 now. I started when I was 13 in high school, freshman year. There was something on Yahoo News, I believe, about the world record just having been broken at, I think it was 20 seconds average and 17 single by Dan Knight's the 2003 World Rubik's Cube Championship. That's the first competition in like 20 years, since 83, I think. And I just got hooked. I watched the interview and I'm like, you know what? I want to learn that. And we didn't have YouTube in 2003, so I had to look online for a written guide with pictures. And it turns out I found a intermediate solution. I didn't have any of these books back then. I still don't really ever use them. Just sort of a collector's item to have something from the 80s. But I learned after about 2 weeks, and it took me 2 more months to memorize the solution. And it turns out it was an intermediate method, so I didn't even...
You just skipped right over basic.
Didn't even know.
Did Mr. Rubik know when he created this thing what kind of phenomenon he was generating?
No, of course not. He was just trying to find a working model to demonstrate how pieces can move in 3D geometry for his architecture class. He was a Hungarian architect. I think he originally called it the Magic Cube, but the company that produced it was like, you know what? Let's name it after you. The Rubik's Cube is a much more identifiable name.
Okay, cool. All right, one more time.
Do I got to?
Yeah.
Thanks for giving me the easy solve.
I was going to say, I just saw 3 oranges already in a row.
Most people think when you have a bunch of pieces lined up that it makes it easier, but you barely ever care about that. So you kind of mess them up as you go. Oops.
All right, which brings me to the next question.
Yes.
Mr. Rubik invented one that really takes quite a lot of effort. You actually have to hold with both hands to spin around. Somebody came along and invented this one. It's really sliding quite nice under your fingertips there. Yeah, okay. Which explains how they can get it down to 20, 15, 10 seconds.
The world record, I think, is under 4 seconds right now.
Under 4 seconds.
With like under 6 average.
And that's not the computerized one.
That's a human being.
A human being.
I mean, the jury's still out on whether Felix Zemdegs is actually a human, but he's competed in a lot of competitions, so I think he would have been outed by now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do a little race here.
Okay.
I'm going to mix this one up one more time.
Okay, I'll mix up yours.
Jameson's going to use the regular Rubik's Cube, and I'm going to use what's called the Boob Cube. Okay, ready?
Get him started.
Ready?
I don't know. I might need to give you a head start.
Okay, all right.
3, 2, 1, go.
Let's see. All right, done.
Yay! Well, you showed me.
And for anyone who finds even this one to be a challenge, there is just this solid cube.
Right.
There.
You got to have a 1x1 when the collection goes up to a
There you
13 by
go.
13.
What is the overall strategy for solving a cube?
Pray.
Okay. Good. Okay, now after you've done that...
Yeah. Sacrificed a few goats.
Okay.
Then you got the skills.
So when I do this, and I've done it twice now for you, and I hand it to you, the first thing you've done every time is simply looked at it.
Right.
What are you looking for?
A way out
Okay.
of the problem of the cube. So...
Talk out loud now of what you're thinking. Yeah, there.
So I'm thinking, find the cross pieces. So I'm looking for the first 4 white edges. I put them all in my mind. I'm trying to pre-plan. You plan the cross and you solve it. And then from there, a technique comes into play called look ahead, where the more advanced you are, the better your look ahead. You can see what's coming up next while you're working on a current pair. So it's not like, oh, I locate a piece, I'm focused entirely on it till it's solved, then I locate another. It's I locate a piece, I'm solving it while I'm looking for the next. So in this case, since I'm using the advanced method, I'm pairing up corner and edge pairs to get blocks of 2 all the way around and solving what's called the F2L, first 2 layers. So the first 2/3 of the cube is solved. And then the last layer for a beginner can be done in 4 simple algorithms, or if you learn the more advanced method, you can do it in 2, but you have to learn 78 algorithms total. And if you don't mess them up, you can do it properly like I did there. 2 algorithms.
Wow.
So when you get to the last layer, there's 57 different ways that the yellow stickers can be facing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's called the OLL, orientation of the last layer. And then there's 21 ways after that's done that the final pieces can be moved around, keeping the yellows on top, and that's PLL, permutation.
Now, is that... How do I phrase this question?
This is normal for a lot of people.
Is this... And that's all in your head? Are you at a point now after 13 years, 17 years,
mm-hmm.
where everything you just told me you can spot as you're working?
I have the solution tattooed on the inside of my eyeballs.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So you're just a whole bunch of letters and numbers right now.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's all in my head. I'm not planning the entire solution by no means. I'm just taking it step by step,
mm-hmm.
and once you get good enough, you'll start to recognize patterns like, oh, there's the blue and red corner and blue and red edge. They go together. Here's how. And no matter where they are in the cube, it's not as simple. It's not as hard as the pieces are anywhere and it's just this big mess, but you're slowly building blocks up, so it's reducing the amount of places that the pieces can be, making it easier to see.
So let's talk about your collection. And let's start first with why so many...
Why? Just why?
Okay, let's start with why.
Because I have a problem.
Okay, now let's move on to why so many of the...
You broke it.
3x3s. Because... I mean, for in terms of practice and skill, you really only need one.
Right.
And in terms of speed, you only need the really loose speed championship style.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a couple dozen.
And I found a box downstairs of like 20 more.
And okay, so you have 40 regular 3x3s.
Yeah. Everybody starts with one cube, the basic Rubik's brand. They find it doesn't turn very well. They go to a speed cube, and then you start getting hooked, and just like anybody, you probably buy a bunch of photography gear.
If I had the money.
Yeah. So anybody that gets into a hobby wants to try what another company is making, or their new model, or just, oh, maybe this one will make me faster, maybe this one I like the feel of, maybe it's stickerless, maybe it's got a special color scheme on it. And it's sort of like, you just want to have a bunch of things to try. There's no real reason. It's just slowly developed over time. I didn't go on and say, I want to buy 20 cubes all at once. I've been doing this for 17 years, more than half my life. So I've just slowly accumulated. Also, cubing technology progresses over the years. So the last few years, we've been putting magnets in cubes. So they actually line up a lot easier and lock into place.
I can feel that This one just keeps rotating. Mm-hmm. That one actually had a notch feeling. It went...
This is called a Go Cube. It's one of the 3 models available right now. It connects to your phone via Bluetooth, and it will actually show you on screen the moves that you're making in real time. It can recognize when you've solved the cube, so there's no need to stop a timer. And if you're a beginner, this cube will actually teach you the step-by-step method how to solve, not just this piece goes there, but here's a tutorial.
All right, now you've got one here that is still in a keepsake box. I'm almost afraid to touch it.
A few years ago, a magician named Stephen Brundage popularized Rubik's Cube magic. So he'll throw it behind his back when it looks completely scrambled, and it will come out solved as he catches it, and a whole bunch of other tricks like putting it in a paper bag and pulling it out solved. So he sold a tutorial. So I purchased this, and it came with a cube, and it's got a website that I can visit to learn some of the tricks. Still haven't done it yet, but I think it would be cool to do.
But like a good magician, you will follow the mantra that the trick is only told when the trick is sold, right?
That's a good one.
Okay.
I have a good friend. Her name is Sarah Fraser. I met her in college. And she screenshotted one of my YouTube videos, youtube.com/Rubik's Guy.
Put it right by your face there.
And and she put it on a Rubik's Cube. And the stickers have started to peel, but I've kept it with love. And now I can say that I've solved myself, but just not in the real world.
Now let's take a look at the different sizes, and we have a basic 2x2, which as you were setting up...
Basic.
Which you were as you were setting up, I naively said, "Oh well, that must be pretty easy," and you said it still has over 3 million permutations.
I think it's close to 3.5 million.
3.5 million. You have a 4. I say a 4, meaning you have 4s.
Yes.
You have lots of 4s.
So what he's saying is 4 by 4. So like
4 by
4
4
layers on the cube. So an abbreviation we'll go with is 4, 5, 6.
I'm
7.
a layman. He'll bring you the professional terms.
No, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just saying for the viewers.
We have a 5.
Mm-hmm.
You have a 6, and again I say a.
Yeah.
Meaning we have a representative from each one.
Right.
Is that a 7?
Yep.
That's a 7. Okay. And we've got, for example, these actually are exactly the same. They've just put a curve on it.
Yeah, this is a 10 by 10 and this is an 11 by 11.
Oh, okay. And your biggest personal one is what?
This guy.
Okay.
13 by 13. This is a $300 puzzle with over 1,000 moving parts. You're welcome.
Okay.
You're
I
welcome.
just heard $300. So
yeah, it's fine. I think you could drop it from this height.
I'm not going to.
Yeah, don't.
I just want to go slowly.
Every single layer turns.
And that turns pretty smoothly, actually. That almost turns.
You didn't break it. A piece popped. And since this cube came out, they have made a 17 by 17. I believe it's made by a different company. It's about this big and close to $700, which is why you do not see one here.
This is the 30th anniversary Rubik's.
Right.
Have you even gotten it out, or does that just sit on your shelf?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just keep it in the box. I know it won't turn well. There's really no reason to have one out. And
40 years from now, if you need a retirement, you just put this on eBay?
so a friend of mine, Dane Christensen, he made what he calls X cubes. I have a pair of them in the box right now. The X cube and the X2. Now, when I first saw these in the store, I'm like, oh, it's just glued on extensions, which was a thing that happened back in my day. Back in my day! Where the pieces were just glued on and it didn't add a bonus challenge. But here, you can actually rotate all the layers. They can exchange pieces with each other. It is a little bit tough to turn on a good day, yeah. And it does shapeshift. So you turn one way and you can turn another.
Careful, you lose it.
Yeah. And then you've got a puzzle that just looks like really scrambled.
Now, I had one of these as a kid, and I could still never solve them, but we have the...
Pyraminx.
What does Pyraminx, okay.
Mm-hmm.
You have some other minxes around.
Right.
What do we got here?
We have a set of the Megaminx family. So just like you go 2x2 through 13 by 13 or whatever, you've got a Megaminx, which is a 12-sided dodecahedron puzzle. It solves pretty much like a 3x3. You just have more first 2 layer sets. Gigaminx, which is what he's holding, an extra layer. And Teraminx, an extra layer. So 3 layers per side, 2 layers, 1 layer. And they make a Petaminx, which is 4. Here's a puzzle called Mirror Blocks, or the Mirror Cube. It's a 3x3, but instead of colors, every piece is cut differently. And it scrambles, and the goal is to get it back to a solid shape. You solve it just like a 3x3, but instead of using colors, you recognize, oh, this is the small corner, it goes with the small edge kind of thing.
All right, and this absolute mind blower.
What are you talking about? It's not much.
It's kind of like a Pyraminx. You can turn the points. Great. So you want to line up. You know, where's my other red? It's way down there.
But you can't scramble it that way. Everything's self-contained in the corners. So what happens?
Flip the whole thing.
Yeah, don't force it if it's not going.
And no, I won't. I learned my lesson. How long of a video are you prepared to sit through?
Right.
And it actually just made it worse. I just moved. Oh man.
The puzzle is appropriately called Brain Twist. It really messes with your mind because when you twist it inside, an entire side becomes just one triangle. So all of those pieces are in there.
And that's how I messed up the red so easily.
Uh-huh.
Something like this, where the moment I turn it, I actually change the entire shape of the thing.
Uh-huh. They actually made that puzzle back in the 80s. It's called a square one or a back to square one.
But that actually, now you're stepping outside the principle of get the centers ready, get the sides ready, and get the corners ready. Mm-hmm. Now you have to pay attention to a lot of other details.
This is a scrambled one.
So I can see why, you can sit here as someone who's mastered this, and then the 4 and 5, you could move up to the 13 and the 17 and the 19, and the principle is still the same. Mm-hmm. This brings in new principles.
Yes. This is the curvy copter. You can turn one edge, and then when you find the intersecting piece, you can turn another, and then it can keep going and going, and this puzzle will actually restrict its own movements because pieces get in the way of each other. This is also a 3x3, but it's off-cut diagonally on the top and bottom layer, but not in the middle. So in order to turn this one, you've got to offset the middle halfway, and then you can turn and start scrambling. Here's a 3x3 that is just a whole bunch of spheres. I think it's called a mole cube for like chemistry nerds.
And then you've got, basically, these are 2x2s. Mm-hmm. I just mauled Darth Maul.
Help me. This is called the orb or orbit.
I have a wife and 3 kids now. I just do not have time to sit and get one of these figured out.
That's probably because, like, the reason I don't have a wife and 3 kids is because I have that. I'm single, ladies. Can you tell?
He's eligible. I've had you solve that twice now, but I've been talking to you.
Oh, you want a real solve?
Yep.
You ready?
Yes.
I was going to say go, but I heard the beep. I'm like, I better start.
That was actually me resetting it, but...
Okay. We won't be too far off. This could be a good solve if I don't mess up horribly.
12, 13, 14. We'll say 14 and a half because you were done before I could even react, so... Nicely done. Mm-hmm. All right, we've been talking to Jameson O'Connor, Bend, Oregon resident, Rubik's Cube obsessive compulsive aficionado nerd extraordinaire.
I wear it with pride.
The program is Nobody You Know, but now you do. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to stay updated when we have new episodes, be sure to click the like button here and the subscribe button for the entire channel. My goal is 1 new episode a week, so I invite you, especially on our current travel budget if you live in Central Oregon, to send me an email telling me why you are interesting. Don't be shy, brag on yourself a little bit, and let's see if we can get you on the program. This is Nobody You Know. I'm Brian Johnson, and remember, you don't have to be famous to be fascinating. See you next time.
And if you want to learn the 3x3 or 4x4, check out my channel.